Hello, hello, hello. This is Tooth Be Told, Dr. Kyle Dumpert.
And this is Dr. Walter Aka, and we have the pleasure of having my boy, Danny Choi. He's a periodontist. He's an all-star, really. He does everything. He does stuff I don't want to deal with, which is like OS stuff, like thirds and everything, right?
Okay.
But he's not even here for perio. He's actually here to educate us on how to market better, how to make marketing, which is a scary word for a lot of dentists. How to make it easier and basically how to get the return on investment.
Cool.
I mean, after talking to him, I felt like I was a guru at marketing, and I barely do marketing. So,
Well, you
so
don't have
he's
to,
here to
right?
base. You're right, exactly. See, that's how easy it is. And this is not like some YouTube, follower guy. It's like if you sign up here and write this, email here, I'll basically walk you through how to make $1 billion. He's not promising any of that. So you guys can hang up if that's the case, But Danny, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome.
No, not at all, man. So I mean, the one thing I know a lot about you because we went through the same perio program. But give us a little background, and then let us know like how you kind of transitioned into perio and how you saw perio a little bit different than most of us did. With owning practices and so forth. So let's start with like your little background.
Okay, cool. So just a little bit of background. My born and raised in Ohio. My dad's a physician, and he told me way back in the day, even when I was in high school, he's like, his colleague is a general surgeon at the same clinic, and his son was actually a periodontist in Mansfield, Ohio. And he's like, my dad is just a workaholic. He's like a go-getter. He's working. He he's always talking about taking care of the patients. And he's like, yeah, if you want to do medicine, like I'd recommend you that, only do it if you really, really, really want to take care of the patients, because I mean, your family life is going to suffer, So, I rarely saw my dad. He was working 100-hour weeks back in the day. But so being, 16, 17, first hearing about perio or oral surgery and stuff like that, I don't even know what the hell they did. Like I knew perio was like a gum doctor or something like that. That's all I knew, right? So,
yeah.
I heard about it back then, but, really wasn't into it. Went to UCLA, directionless, graduated. My dad was like, see, I told you should go do dentistry. So then I looked more seriously into it. Then I went to dental school, and one of my roommates was actually a periodontist. So he told me more about it. Long story short, go to perio residency. And, that's where we first met in Pittsburgh. And, coming out, like, I know that like our years at Pittsburgh didn't overlap, right? Because it wasn't until I graduated that you started your first year in residency. But in school, like I was like in residency, I was just mainly focusing in on the whole, you know, uh, you know, I made Dr. Family, our perio director back in the day, like subscribe to mobile tape so I could watch all the AAP lectures for like the last 5 years back at that time. So I was really focused on like trying to be the best periodontist I could be. But, I really wish kind of back in those days, because I mean, we're in Pittsburgh. How much is there really to do, right? But
sorry, people in Pittsburgh, you just lost us like four listeners.
But, there was like, like back then I kind of wish that I did focus a little bit more on like the business aspect and marketing. But fortunately for me, I'd always been kind of sales minded. I did a little bit of sales, like, selling electronics before I started dental school. But, then making the decision, because I'm from, Northeast Ohio, which is a very economically depressed, part of the country. And I made the decision to move to Texas because I knew that it was a very business friendly state and it was growing. So right after graduating residency, moved here to DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, and bought my I immediately did what you were doing, right? So I started working for this real like a smaller group practice, did all their surgeries, and like probably like 2 months into it, I then started to kind of like find my own practices, and I started doing traveling surgery back in like 2011. Back kind of like when it wasn't like widely accepted, right? So it's kind of funny when I look back to like in my history, because like I remember in my off days I would like throw on a suit. I had like a little packet of information, like here's the things I do here. I could do them at your practice. And I remember talking to some of these these doctors, and they thought I was nuts. Like you're going to do surgery at my practice and all stuff.
Right.
And it's funny because that's definitely like more mainstream now, right?
It is.
continue to do that till about the end of 2016. But what I bought my first GP practice in 2012. Bought another one in 2014. Bought another one in 15.
So why did you want to buy GP practices? What was like the thought process between that? Because you're a periodontist.
Right. So one of my buddies was like, he had this, he was like, man, I heard that like it'd be a good idea if maybe we, bought a GP practice because you can have your own internal referral source, right? Versus doing the own traditional periodontist office that everyone has to refer to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like back even in 2011, I was like, man, like, we are starting to notice like this trend towards more, GPs like doing more specialty procedures. So, I was like, that could definitely be an issue to, specialists down the road, whether you're an oral surgeon or periodontist or endodontist or something like that. So I thought, well, you can, if you have your own GP office and you can basically secure your own referrals. So that's kind of where like I was like thinking from, but
okay.
Yeah, so and it worked out great. I did own GP offices. I had several GP offices. And I was still also traveling, as like you, I was working at Pacific Dental. I did that for a few years. I stopped that in like late 2016. And so about, and this is kind of what bridges then into the whole marketing aspect. I didn't really do too much marketing with the GP practices, quite frankly.
Okay.
I was, back then I was, putting my toe in the water in regards to like doing something like Groupon, or it was like, okay, we don't like that. You're getting the wrong type of patient.
Right.
Obviously, then focusing on your reputation, but back then too, like we were like, okay, who does SEO? Like Google, like getting people to come to your website was supposed to be synonymous with SEO, right? So I was just like anybody else, it's like, who do you use? Like, are you happy with it? Okay, cool. Like, how much are you paying? Like, okay, how much you, like back then, right? It's like, how much do you pay for your website? $5,000. Okay, cool. All right, that's expensive. How much is a month? $500, $800. Okay, cool. Like, but like, and it's kind of like, what are they doing for you? I have no idea. But okay, well, am I gonna like quit using them? I was like, well, at what risk, right? Are they gonna jack up my website? That's like my worst fear, right? Are they gonna corrupt my website? Or are they gonna do something that could, in essence, like sabotage me or pull me lower in the ranks? Because, especially, coming from a specialist point of view, every patient that comes into our practice, there's a higher cost or a higher average dollar amount. We get less patients, but each one comes at a higher, dollar amount. So, if you're at risk of losing any patients from your practice, you're kind of scared to kind of like, change any of the details of your website, right? So I think kind of like back then, it's like, you have like a paranoia of like, you're almost like at the mercy of this Google marketer, right? So, I mean, that's kind of like, so, but my point being is that when I did own those GP offices, I didn't really focus too much about the SEO aspect, and I knew nothing about Google AdWords.
Well, okay, let's break that down real quick. Okay, so one, if you don't mind, tell us like how much your office, without really focusing on advertisement, was like producing in a year.
Okay, so like my GP offices back in the day, my best one, that was the first one I bought in 2012. That throughout like owning it, maybe since a year into owning it, it was doing like $130,000 a month.
Right. So you're looking at 1.2, 1.3, maybe more, right?
Yeah, and then getting to 1.6.
1.6, right? You see, and that's without any advertising.
It's kind of funny because if you look back, no, there's no advertising, right? And and we were out in the suburbs, out in DFW, so it wasn't like I was like rural, like like, and we were like we weren't fee for service, anything like that. We took all insurances. That was out in Keller, Texas, but my thing is that it was just like, hey, let's try to maintain a good reputation. Let's maintain our Yelp. Back then too, right? It was like Yelp was more important than Google, right? So we were worried about the reviews. That was like the primary thing that we were working about. But SEO is like, I don't know what the heck's going on. And it's kind of funny because when I do look back upon owning those practices, I mean, come on, what's going on every day when you're traveling surgery. Like, you're seeing all these patients. I mean, I kind of regret, and I do look back and I was like, man, if I actually focused in on managing my own practices, I'm for sure they would have been more successful,
So you keep mentioning SEOs. What is that?
Okay, cool.
Like break that down for us.
Let me actually tell you like a little bit kind of about what my current practice, because that's kind of where the evolution occurred, right?
Yeah.
So I basically led up to, like I moved out here 2011. I had got up to 3, even 4 GP practices. And then in late 2016, I was like, there's an opportunity. Some guy, like an endodontist, was like subleasing his office. He was getting tired of doing, just practicing. So I subleased his practice for like a month or two. And I was like, you know what? I remember this day, like this month, I produced like $15,000, and I had this crazy idea. I was like, you know what? I can make this standalone surgery practice work. So I found a location out in McKinney. I pulled $1 million loan. I was like, I'm gonna make this work. So in early 2017, I was still subleasing, and I was talking to the guy who did my website, right? And one of my buddies, this was a buddy of his, and he's like, yeah, he's good at SEO. He taught me like a lot of the stuff that I even know. So let's use him. So he designed my website, and I knew nothing about SEO still to even critique if he was doing a good job or not, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but I paid him like, $6,000 for the website. And then he also had a strategy. He's like, well, SEO takes a while. Again, I don't know what he's talking about. But he's like, and then he was like, let's do some Google ads, like Google AdWords. And I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, we're going to spend like $2,000 a month. I was like, shoot. We're just starting this practice, $2,000 a month. And I was like, okay, And so we decided to do that. And then 6 months later, I wasn't really too happy because I wasn't really seeing any patients. And keep in mind, Walter, like just to get people in the door, mm-hmm. I was throwing out these ridiculous deals on Google AdWords. Like it was like $1,000 wisdom teeth with sedation, right? It was like, it was like $1,200 dental implants with sedation. These are like bargain basement deals. And keep in mind, like by now I've been practicing for like 6 years. So people in the door, get them like a good experience, and then have them like spread the word, right? So funny thing was then for about 6 months, like to 9 months, I had one of my patients, we were just randomly talking, and she was like, yeah, I do SEO. I was like, oh, cool. SEO, again, not knowing what the hell SEO is. Hey, can you work on my website? Can you give me an evaluation? And so people do an evaluation of your website, right? And then they give you a binder of information. They're like, here are my findings. This is where you're ranking for this, this, and this. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but cool. Let's make the investment, right? So she works for me for, the 6 to 9 month. And then she actually then has to, because she's so busy, she has to she's actually transitioning to a whole nother line of business. So she actually stops working with me. And then.
How much did she charge you for this?
So, oh my God, it was expensive, man. Like, I wish I could go back and look at how much exactly it was per month. But for SEO, she would basically do search engine optimization, because my practice was on McKinney. She's like, well, you have Frisco that's close to you. You have Plano that's close to you. So every month she would charge me like $1,200 to $2,000 a month to go and optimize for these areas. Wow. I was like, I don't know what the hell she's even talking about, right? Yeah. But again, like I'm just like, well, I guess go for it, right?
Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen, right? So, I mean, here's a great thing about it, which I'm very fortunate, is that, other people who may be listening to this, if they have a new practice that they just started up, or they have a budget, they don't really have a $5,000 marketing budget to, use it, right? I mean, they're like, holy crap, I got like $150,000 left for my loan, working capital that I don't want to burn through too quickly. But me, I'm generating cash flow for my other practices. So I'm like, and like my traveling surgery gig up to that point. So I'm like, you know what, I got the money. Like, let's give it a try. I'm very open-minded in regards to that. So, so she did that. And then basically after she quit, I was like, I then transitioned into Facebook marketing, and I'll talk about that later, and I'll get back on the Google SEO. And then I spent a lot, I worked with somebody, and I spent, several thousands of dollars on that every month. I started spending thousands of dollars on Google AdWords a month. And then a few years later, decided to stop and learn and all that by myself. But let's just focus on the Google SEO aspect of it first. So that's
so break down what I saw what SEO by definition is basically a service engine
Search engine optimization. Yeah.
Right. So really, like, what does that mean? Like, what are you trying to accomplish by doing that?
Right. So basically, I want to I don't want to waste anyone's time, but I'm just going to dumb this down as much as possible because that's
why we're here. Pretend you're talking to me.
So basically, search engine optimization is I joke around all the time. I was like, my hair is thinning out, and I was like, all right, what if I wanted to get hair transplants, for example, right? I was like, hair replacement, hair transplants, hair cloning, who knows what technology exists out there, but I might be watching a commercial on TV. It's like, wow, they got some sort of laser or some sort of machine that does hair growth, right? So basically, when I go on Google and I search in exactly what I was looking for example, I heard there's this really cool technology, and 5 years from now, it's going to fix every bald guy's hair in the world. And it's called hair cloning, right? So if I go on Google and I type in hair cloning, right? That right there is my keyword search. So keywords, right? Those are the keywords that I was searching for Google, right?
Yeah.
So if I then search for hair cloning, then Google is going to show me a bunch of results, right?
Right.
But what Google's going to do is that you understand that we've used different search engines, since the internet was invented. I remember back in the day we had Yahoo, we had Ask Jeeves, Excite, I think that was one. I don't know, all these different companies, right? Bing is but if you're going to do a search on Google or Bing, you're most likely going to do it on Google because Google has a tendency to give you much more relevant search results, right? And that's a result of their algorithm that they've developed over all these years. But ultimately what happens is Google is incentivized to give you good search results, okay? And the way that Google, as part of their algorithm that they know that they're going to give you a good search result is that when you type in hair cloning and then you click on that site, basically when you go to that site, you're going to spend a lot of time kind of scrolling through that site, getting as much information that you can about hair cloning, right? So it could, for the, we have the luxury of knowing everything about dental implants, but what about, we know that we've had patients that, are interested in dental implants, but dental implants become synonymous with a single tooth implant versus an all-on-4, so they don't know, they're all I know is I can use dental implants to restore my teeth, right? But their knowledge of dental implants is very rudimentary. So what we then do is basically what people type in, whether they're typing in all-on-4 or dental implant bridge or dental implants, or those are all keyword searches, right? So basically when somebody searches, for example, for an all-on-4, Google is very incentivized to send them to a page that does a really good job apparently of explaining things to people, because obviously it's kind of you're walking by a cookie store and it has a huge line, right? Right there, I know that place must have great cookies, right? They always have that line outside, right? So it's kind of the same effect. That person that goes to that website that spends 10 minutes reading all about all-on-4, they probably have a good website. And so maybe Google is going to be hey, this, as part of their algorithm, the amount of time someone spends on this website, they're going to redirect people to that site. So that's kind of search engine optimization. Now, there's little things that you can do when a programmer or somebody who's designing your website needs to implement, because there's rules to the game of how you basically increase your SEO. Okay. So for example, on your website, when you're so for example, on my website, NorthTexasDentalSurgery.com, I have many services that I offer. I do all-on-4, I do dental implants, wisdom teeth, gum grafting, all that stuff. Now, guys, I'm using the term gum grafting because that's how the public looks for it.
Right.
So they don't know connective tissue grafting.
Right.
They don't know the pinhole tech. Well, some people, because Dr. Chow has done such a good job marketing, people will search for the pinhole technique, but the pinhole technique is also a keyword search, right? So when someone comes to my my let's say all-on-4 page, there's certain things that I have to have when I'm doing SEO. For example, I want to have my city that that I'm functioning in, I say all-on-4 in McKinney, And there's like the keywords that I know that, Google is looking for. So there's certain rules to the game that are part of SEO that basically, again, Google is looking for as part of their algorithm.
So are these keywords embedded in your programming of the website?
They're embedded in my page. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you're basically designing your page so the computer of Google is reading it as a computer, looking for those words that a patient might be putting in as a search.
Fantastic. That's a great way to put it. But the other thing that you understand is other parts of the algorithm that exist too, is that what we want to do is we want to put pertinent, informative information. Okay. So that when someone goes to my page, they're going to spend 5-10 minutes and be like, oh, this is what all I'm for is, right? Because I saw, if you ever notice, you watch the Clear Choice commercial, right? Mm-hmm. It's because again, I've been studying marketing even since I graduated. I've been I'd been studying marketing. I hadn't really implemented too much, but I was just, understanding the theory of it. But it was I started watching these Clear Choice commercials. I was like, man, all it is some old lady going and talking about how she wasn't happy about her smile and how emotionally she's so, happy now and confident. And you see her out in San Antonio River Walk, eating with her friends, smiling, in her beautiful white teeth. But you don't know, you're she's not saying, oh, I got the all on four at Clear Choice and the dental, it's just dental implants to restore my confidence and all that stuff. Right.
Right.
And so if then even if they did talk about the all on four or dental implants, and then someone says oh, that's an all on four. I was like, all on four? What the heck is all on four? I had a patient come to my practice. He was referred by another dentist, and he was I was telling him about all on four, Mm-hmm. But it's they know nothing about it, just me putting myself in my shoes of this new innovative hair regenerative technique. Most people are going to be is it a scam? Right? That's the first question.
Yeah.
Scam? How much is it? How long are the results going to last? Right. So these are things that also that Google says, hey, this guy is going to write up 3 sentences on the all on four and have an all on four page. This guy has a full write up on, the conversion, the day of the surgery, how 5-6 months later, you're going to be in your final prosthesis, the pain experience, how much it costs. And so there's all these different factors that, again, and then, to even go into more detail, how do I even know that these things I'm talking about, the cost, the pain levels, these things is well, the reason I know that is because the more I studied marketing, I realized that you had to do keyword research. Okay. So kind of what that means is, so for example, this is wisdom teeth, right? So let's talk about wisdom teeth real quick.
Yeah.
Well, when people search for wisdom teeth, if they're in wisdom teeth, they're having pain, there's certain things that you can actually look on Google and find what do people typically search for when they're having wisdom teeth pain, right? So they're going to say wisdom teeth removal near me, wisdom teeth cost, are my wisdom teeth bothering me, pain in back jaw, swollen jaw. So there's so many different types of symptoms or nerve damage from wisdom teeth removal because they've heard horror stories, right? Recovery from wisdom teeth, right? How much can wisdom teeth cost, right? So what you can actually do is you can actually use different websites, for example, SEMrush, that you can go to these websites and find out about what, if you enter a topic, you couldn't find all the related searches. So if you know that those are the most common searches that people ask for, you can then generate content on your website for wisdom teeth, excuse me, that then answers all these questions, and you can write a little blurb about each one of these topics.
So what's the website again?
Oh, SEMrush.
SEMrush. Okay.
Now, when you were paying that marketing search engine optimization person, the thousands of dollars every month, they were doing this for you?
So some did and some didn't.
Okay.
So to tell you how many different guys, let's just talk about my surgery practice, okay? Not even the original GP practices, because I used basically the same website, and I didn't really, even though I was paying somebody to do with SEO all these years, they really weren't doing anything at all to the website. But again, I was functioning in fear. I was oh my God, what happens if I discontinue service with them? Will my ranking go to hell, right?
Right.
On page 6.
Right.
And if I'm on page 6, I'm not going to get a single patient, right? So I was it's not, it's not trying to save $700 is not worth me not getting phone calls in.
Right.
So that's kind of like how I was thinking at that time, which was very naive.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know any better, so I was functioning out of fear. So, but let's go to my surgery practice. My surgery practice, I'm not going to say the name of these marketing companies, but because it frustrates me, these marketing companies, because they just take advantage of us, right? They know,
Break that down.
Yeah, and I will, right? But dentists make money. We're going to take advantage of them, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so the first company, I'm not going to say their name, but they're very big. They're definitely big in the all-on-4 space, and they go after specialists. Okay, right. So they charge me. God, I can't remember. It was probably like $78,000 like 5 years ago, and then I then switched over to my friend of the friend. So Walter, like actually to kind of illustrate, how did I even have this website 5 years ago and my surgery practice is only like 4 years old? It's because back in the day, like I went to an AAP meeting, and you know how we were doing our own traveling surgery at that time? Right. I figured I should just create a website, and I called it back then North Texas Dental Surgery. So that's how that first came along. But anyways, I signed up with this company at the AAP meeting. I used them for, I think probably about 2 years. Then I switched to the friend of the friend, used him for a little while. Then I switched to the patient, used that person for a little while. And then I switched to another guy who did some marketing website for my business coach out in Utah. I used him for about 6 months, and he was the last guy that did my SEO because at a certain point, me being a go-getter, it was exactly Christmas. Like I think it was like December 26th or something like that in exactly 2 years ago. So it was before COVID. And I was like, what happened is I had my original surgery practice in McKinney. I opened in summer of 2017 after I got out of my sublease. And then I opened another surgical practice in Plano, Texas, in end of 2018. And so this practice had been around for probably about 14 months now. And, it's called North Texas Dental Surgery. It's just another location in Plano. But it's like we couldn't get a damn patient off the internet. And I was like, what is going on here, man? Like, I was like, I still have to make myself available, and I still need to go here 2 days a week. But like, we are not generating a single internet lead for this website. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what I then did was I decided, I was like, okay, I'm like, I gotta take matters in my own hands, because I'm paying these marketing guys. And at that time, I had a guy doing my website /SEO, and I had another guy who was doing my like Facebook and Google AdWords marketing. Mm-hmm. And to tell you how much I was spending at this time is gonna make you cry, because like at that time I was spending on Google and Facebook ads about $20,000 a month.
Wow!
Jesus!
Wow!
Yeah, $1,000.
So you're telling me in a year you spent $240,000?
Yeah. So it was not in 1 year,
right?
That was at that time, right?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening to again tell you, like, so it was that holiday time, and I was like, my search was like, okay, I did a little Google search, second location, search engine optimization. So I started finding out about some of the things that like why I might not be ranking for my second location. So then I started doing more digging, and I started looking at YouTube, started following some of these videos about search engine optimization. And basically after like just kind of like being in the zone for 3 hours on YouTube, like looking at SEO stuff, I was like, I had my epiphany, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, right? And so then what I immediately did was I then looked and cross-referenced my website, and like, sorry if you don't mind me, like I have to turn, like my TV like came off of pause and I need to turn it off. It's like.
So while you're doing that,
mm-hmm.
Were you able to actually see the raw coding for your website in order to be able to compare the two?
No. So basically we don't even need to look at that coding. Okay. It's just like a matter of like, even on the page, there's like simple rules that you just need to follow.
Go ahead, break that down.
Like again, exactly what I was talking about. So here's what happened, right? Like I'm like, I get frustrated and almost angry thinking about it right now. So like, these are like some basics that this website and YouTube videos are talking about. And like the simple keywords and city locations and like all these like things that are supposed to be happening on your webpage. did this guy out of Utah that did my website, did he do a good job of aesthetically making my website looking good? Yeah, he did a great job. God, what's the name of that book? There's maybe I'll think about it here within a session. There's a marketing book that I read, but StoryBrand. It's called StoryBrand by Donald something. But that's a great book. And it kind of tells you how you should like maybe lay out your website and your ads. Yeah, StoryBrand. But I really like that book. I read that a few times, and like, I noticed that he was also like this SEO guy, website developer, also read that book, and so the way he laid out my website was really good. From a sales perspective, it was good. However, he didn't. I don't think this guy even knew what he was doing, like SEO. I think he was like selling SEO services, but he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
There were certain things on my website that like weren't there, and I was like, "Holy crap, man, this is crazy!" And I was pissed, because like I paid thousands of dollars, like not 6 months ago, like 5, 6, 7. I remember like somewhere $5,000 to $8,000, and I'm paying him $800 a month, So I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like now I know why these pages are still not ranking.
Yeah.
So what was like some of the biggest things that were supposed to be there that did not? That were not there?
Just like if you're talking about keywords for doing wisdom teeth and like creating like and having different multiple locations, he wasn't creating different like pages for the different locations. Like if I do wisdom teeth, you're supposed to have a page for wisdom teeth in McKinney and also for your office in Plano. So there's certain things that he was just missing out on that I'm like, dude, these are some big. I mean, like it's like us like being specialists. It's like very frustrating for us to like not know about some of the principles of GBR.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just like it's disappointing. And it's like, dude, do you even take your craft seriously? So that was like very upsetting to me. So literally, long story short, I was like, dude, I can't work with this guy anymore. But again, like the way these guys are is like they take advantage of us. I was like, okay, cool. Like, but you still have to pay us for the next 2 months because your contract said we need 60-day notice and all that stuff. So like now keep in mind also. So then I started like I was like then I went on a binge of like just learning everything I could, going online, finding out about search engine optimization.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I think we could do this ourselves, So I got with one of my employees, and she's a great go-getter. And then like I was like, hey, watch this, and like tell me like do you think we could do this or not? And so like and that's what we did. We basically ended up firing our on-site marketer. He was doing he does our Facebook and Google Ads marketing, and I told you I was spending like $20,000 a month at that time in December. And like if you're trying to evaluate your ROI, and someone might sit there and say is like, dude, what the hell were you thinking spending that much money a month? I was like, well, at that time, I was producing between both offices like $300,000 a month. So it's not like I'm producing $100,000. I'm like I'm losing money off of my marketing. So, but it's not like it's kind of like I'm spinning my wheels, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of patients, doing a lot of like whatever surgeries, wisdom teeth, all on fours, implants, whatever we're doing. But if you're not really profiting off much, it's not a self-sustaining, business model, right? Now, I mean, because I'm the doctor there and I'm making the money off it, it's great. But there's no way I could ever hire an associate, have him do the work, and be spending $20,000 on marketing. You can't conduct business like that. So that's ultimately like how things came about, and to almost kind of tell you how ludicrous it was. Like I actually like. Long story short, what ended up happening was we started doing our own marketing. We started dabbling and like learning a lot about it in January and February. And January, February of 2020, you started getting wind of COVID, right? So you're kind of freaking out about that, and like so many things were up in the air. But when business really shut down, when everyone shut down in like third week of March, I was like, well, I'm going to make use of this time. So what I did was I just did like me and my partner, she's an employee, but I made her a partner on this marketing business. We actually just went on a tear on like just completely revamping our website. And then what was so funny was we started implementing a lot of that in April 2020. Well, when we really reopened in like June of 2020, suddenly that location in Plano started getting all these people for like wisdom teeth, because that's all we really worked on during those, like, that month. We did wisdom teeth, like optimizing our website, creating content, writing all these blogs, and me creating videos. And then like that summer, we started seeing so many patients at that Plano office, and it was really exciting because we saw patients from Plano, we saw patients from North Dallas, and they're like, and patients from Richardson. So you really started to see it happen. So that was really where I knew, like, hey, this SEO stuff really is super important. It works. You don't need to spend a ton of Google ads and stuff like that. And I was telling you guys about keywords, like keyword research and stuff like that. So what happened was, when I was doing all my research that spring, and I was like, you gotta do keyword research. And then I was like, okay, go to some place like SEMrush. And I was doing all my keyword research, and I was starting Excel spreadsheets of like what are the main keywords that someone would look for if they were doing wisdom teeth, for example. And I started finding all that out, and I knew basically what to develop my content around. And it took me like freaking like 2 hours, And I recalled an incident about 4 months earlier when I had my on-site marketer, because he was like, hey doc, what I want to do is like, I want to basically do some research from home, because I'm much more efficient at home than versus I'm working on site. So I was like, okay, guess so. He's gone for a week. I was like, hey, what have you been working on? I was like, oh, like I did all this keyword research. And then I was like, oh, keyword research? I don't know what the hell that is. Okay, cool, But long story short, what ended up happening is when I found out about what truly keyword research was and how fast it could be done, I was like pissed, man. I was like, are you serious, dude? And of course, these guys are just scamming us all, So
let me ask you this, right? If you had to kind of summarize for a new person, right? Because you spent like 2 years, 3 years, heck, you've been doing it for 5 years, right? What are some of the things that you would recommend how to start, right? Instead of, like is it YouTube? Is it, books? Like, how would you get somebody's?
Number one, you do need to know some basics about SEO. Otherwise, you're going to be scammed, okay? Because there's a bunch of people that are going to try to scam you, right? You make money, they're going to scam you. SEO, understand the principle about it, exactly what I was talking about earlier. It is the keywords that people are searching for. They need to be implemented in your website. But when people go to your website, what content can we create that people are going to be on your page for longer? That's what matters, right? So you and I, if we're competitors and we're both in Houston and we both do gum grafting, right? So like, I want to create some videos. Like, I want to create some content. And number one, let's do some keyword research. Like, let's talk about when a patient comes in for a consultation for gum grafting. What are the most common questions they ask? We know basically some people are going to have heard about alloderm, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so we're going to say, like, alloderm versus like, palatal, like donor tissue. We're going to talk about potential tunneling. We're going to talk about maybe the pinhole. You might have heard of the pinhole. What is the pinhole about? We're going to talk about, again, less invasive techniques such as tunneling. We're going to talk about pain levels after. We're going to talk about costs. So these are things that you want to like implement on that page, and you want to answer a lot of that. But now let's also talk about the day and age that we're in. In the day and age we're in, people want to see videos. Right. So can we create some content that like talks about you like going over some of the stuff? Now also, like, do we also want to like, have some photos of some cases, or like create some videos about that? Talk about like why this case was not a good candidate for, or why a alloderm case, what like this wasn't good for an alloderm case versus this, which was good for autogenous. Okay. So there's all these things that we need to think about. But if you just start farming it out to your local SEO guy, he doesn't know anything about this. Right. No offense, but it's a guy out of India he farms it out to, right? So it's a guy here who then subcontracts that work to India and says, yo, come up with some gum grafting stuff. We got a periodontist. He wants a website. Bam, he creates a website for you in 24 hours. He tells you it took you 3 weeks, right? But then the content is bare bones information. Right. And there's nothing. And like, no offense, but if I got a periodontist like that and my website's competing with him, I'm going to destroy him. Right. And I suddenly become the authority on gum grafting in my area, right?
So it sounds like your idea is basically break it down to what people are searching, keep the person on your website as long as possible. Right? Make sure that you're giving them content. So make YouTube videos, probably with your cell phone or something. Sit in an office.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it takes. You can make higher production videos.
Right.
But like, man, I got a second kid on the way. Like, I'm super busy at the practice. I'm also have this marketing company too. Right. Man, like I got so many things going on that like even for me to create content nowadays, like it's tough. There's this guy out of Missouri. He's this, he's this young, good-looking dentist, and he's been creating videos on YouTube like crazy for the last 4 years.
Right.
And the dude's killing it. Like, you should go on YouTube. I think it's called Innovative of Springfield is the name of his practice.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Man, that dude's practice is crazy. It's crazy.
It's huge.
It's like a multi-million-dollar practice, and he started with YouTube a few years ago.
So basically, you're saying like where you put your money would be just content and just information, just to get people on there.
Right. So basically, what I tell people is like, don't be lured in, because a lot of people are going to be like, how you pay them is basically based off of like for example, if you want to put like money towards Google Ads or Facebook, they'll be like, okay, our fee on that is like 15. They take like 15% of the total cost of that you're going to spend on marketing. So if you're like an oral surgeon, you want to spend 20 G's on like all on 4 marketing, they'll be like, okay, our cut for your Google AdWords marketing, you pay us $3,000 also, right? So like everybody has their own ways of like as marketing companies how they charge people, but that Google AdWords and like Facebook is a great quick draw to get people into your website. The problem is it's expensive, and SEO takes time, right? It takes a while for Google to recognize that algorithm. Like, well, I would actually make that debatable. Like, I don't think it's actually that it takes that much time. For example, I started writing gum recession content, and I was able to like get ranked like really quickly. And I had people flying from Colorado, Chicago for consults, for gum grafting. I mean, come on, we know people can do that in Chicago and Colorado, right? But but that's what ended up happening, So I'm going to say you got to start with a great website, because even if you have a great Instagram presence or Facebook or whatever, people are going to come check your website. They're going to check your reviews. Make sure your reviews are great. Make sure your Facebook, your website looks great, but it also has great content that's going to keep them engaged on your website for as long as possible. Keep an idea when you're in multiple consultations about whether wisdom teeth, gum grafting, all on 4 root canals, whatever it is you do, you're going to hear the same questions over and over again. Write those down and answer those on your website. So people are going to feel like they know you before they even come to your practice.
So what
Dan,
can we do?
You guys got 4 minutes before Google shuts our meeting down. So just put that little time warning out there, because we're on the frugal side.
Yeah, right. Google's our parent company. But what I actually want to do is basically get your information for that marketing company you have. Then what I want to do maybe another time, right? Once everybody listens to this and starts implementing, I want you to maybe put something together that kind of shows us exactly what you've been talking about, right? Like, this is a website. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. But let's hear about your company real quick, so that people at least know how to reach out to you, and then we'll probably do part 2.
Okay, cool. So my surgery practice is NorthTexasDentalSurgery.com. And then the dental marketing is Top Echelon Dental Marketing. So, Echelon, ECHELON.
Right.
So Top Echelon Dental Marketing. I think back and I was like, man, this is coming from a marketing standpoint. You got to keep things simple. Some people are going to be like, echelon, what is that? I screwed up right from the beginning, right?
You should have been like simple marketing. That's it.
Simple dental marketing, man. That's it. I got, man, like, I'm too nice of a guy. My partner told me about this, and I was like, went with it,
Yeah.
But so hopefully this information has been helpful. And just to kind of sum it up, I did look back at my past history for Google AdWords, and I logged in, and it showed me. People won't believe this. I spent almost $250,000 from 2017 to the end of 2019 when I quit Google AdWords.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
So I mean, we'll do part 2. I really think we should do part 2, and just kind of talk about this. But we'll end here. But then again, we'll pick it up, and maybe you can show us like what you're actually looking at and searching. So we'll follow your page.
I'll share my screen next time. I'll go into details, kind of like see Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Danny.
Gentlemen. Danny,
no
thank you, boss. I really appreciate you, man.
Yep, that was fun. All right, we'll do this next time.
All right,
brother. Take care, guys.